This is Ryan Walters. There was a debate on this guy's actions in Oklahoma schools recently on like a local TV station. Let me just introduce you to Ryan Walters and who he is, and then I'm going to talk about the debate. Just listen to what he says here. He's a superintendent of Oklahoma schools.
We're going to make an important announcement today regarding the Bible and the Ten Commandments. My staff has been looking at Oklahoma statute. We've been looking at Oklahoma academic standards.
And seeing you're 49 out of 50 or something? Yeah, go on.
And it's crystal clear to us that in the Oklahoma academic standards, under Title 70, multiple occasions, the Bible is a necessary historical document to teach.
Okay. So you were looking at your academic standards and said, we need less academics and more Jesus. And that'll fix the academic standards? Okay, go on.
Necessary historical document to teach our kids about the history of this country, to have a complete understanding of Western civilization.
Yeah, except for the fact that the United States is not a Christian country, never was. Wasn't built on Christianity. In fact, it's the Great Experiment. I'm sure a lot of people probably heard that saying, right? The Great Experiment. You know what the experiment was? Secularism. It was the first state of this size to institute national secularism, like separation between church and state. There have been, smaller ones who've come along and tried it before, but not on this scale. And it was successful for 200-something years. And now we have people like this guy coming in and lying about the founding, claiming that the founding fathers wanted, like, religion crammed in people's throats and stuff, and telling people they need to read from the Bible in school, during the school day. Like, teachers need to teach from the Bible. That's what he's saying in this.
Civilization, to have an understanding of the basis of our legal system, and is frankly, we're talking about the Bible, one of the most foundational documents used for the Constitution and the birth of our country.
The Bible? Foundational to the Constitution? No, it isn't. Where did he get that? He got it from David Barton. It's a lie, a straight up lie, propagandistic lie. The Constitution at no point quotes the Bible, uses verbiage that is similar to the Bible, it did not use the Bible as a source for anything at all. And that was intentional. Doesn't say God's name anywhere in it. Doesn't say God anywhere in it. Doesn't say creator. That came 10 years before the Constitution was even written. It said, we are endowed by our forefathers, we're endowed by our creator to something, all men are created equal. I don't remember what it said now. That was the Declaration of Independence. That was a bunch of people saying to King George, cram it, basically. We are starting our own state, and you can come try to stop us if you want. And he did, and he lost. Anyway, the point is, the Constitution comes 10 years after that, had nothing to do with God. Nothing. Literally nothing. But okay, keep rewriting history, I suppose. The sick irony is that this guy used to be a history teacher.
Our country. We also find major points in history that refer to the Bible, that reference the Bible.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
We see multiple figures, whether we're talking about the Federalist Papers, constitutional conventional arguments, and Martin Luther King Jr., who use it as a tremendous impetus for the civil rights movement, and tie many of those arguments back to the Bible.
Okay, interesting. I hear your Martin Luther King Jr. used the Bible as a basis for his civil rights arguments, and I raise you, the First Commandment contradicts the First Amendment. Also, slave owners used the Bible as a basis to deny people's rights. They accurately pointed out that the Bible supports slavery, is in favor of it, says you should and you can do it, and it describes how to do it. Says you shouldn't do it to these people, but you can do it to those people, and so on and so forth. Pretty detailed, too. So, yeah, if you think the Bible is in favor of human rights or civil rights or whatever, I don't know what you're smoking, but I would love some, please. Martin Luther King Jr. may have believed that he was getting his values from the Bible, but he was not. He had his own set of values, and he used the Bible as a sounding board to find verses that agreed with him and use them to back up his positions. That is literally everybody who's ever used the Bible as a moral guide, quote unquote, through history. It's literally impossible to not cherry pick the Bible. Any moral declaration that it makes is reversed a chapter later, practically. So anyway, about it being the foundational whatever for Martin Luther King Jr., you know what? If the dude quoted the Bible and it's relevant to the history lesson for some very specific reason, I'm okay with them, like, quoting the Bible verse in classrooms and saying this is why he blah, 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 whatever. I don't have a problem with that, and I'm like a secularist. My problem is the fact that he wants to teach it in classrooms. Like, he wants to read from it as though it's a math textbook or something every day.
For the civil rights movement and tie many of those arguments back to the Bible. It is essential that our kids have an understanding of the Bible and its historical context.
Why? Why is that essential? Why is it essential for a Muslim to have an understanding of the Bible or whatever? Why is it essential for a Buddhist to read the Bible in school? You know what? If that's essential, fine. Send your kids to Sunday school if you believe that's essential for them. But don't send my kid to Sunday school. What happened to parents' rights?
So we will be issuing a memo today that every school district will adhere to, which is that every teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom to ensure that this historical understanding is there for every student in the state of Oklahoma in accordance with our academic standards and state law.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to raise them from 49th place in education. Is that where they are? I forget. Oklahoma education ranking. 49, yeah, sure enough. 49th place in education. How about that? Just looking at some of the other stats here. 36th in crime and corrections, 36 out of 50. 23 for economy. That's probably Oklahoma City, pulling all that weight. 49th in education, 49th in healthcare, 26 in fiscal stability. So 26 out of 50 in their ability to kind of float their own boat and not take back from, like, the federal government. 38 out of 50 in natural environment. I'm not sure what that means. And 26 out of 50 in opportunity. That's Oklahoma. You know, I'm going to pop it up on screen so you guys can see it. Here you go, right here. Rankings scorecard. So, yeah, reading the Bible is going to, like, solve that problem specifically. Okay. Some senators, or I think this is a state senator on the left, I believe. Or maybe he's just like a congressman. Anyway, the guy on the left, I think, is a congressman. Guy on the right is a senator. On the left is a Democrat. On the right is a Republican. And they're about to discuss it on a local news channel in Oklahoma. They're going to discuss, like, what Ryan Walters is doing right now at the Oklahoma schools, and I found it super fascinating. Give this a listen. This is from April 14th, 2024, by the way.
Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
In case you haven't seen the piece we did on, Spencer Humphrey did the piece, I'll just say this. It was about Pamela Smith Gordon, who was a grant writer there, very conservative Republican, couldn't wait. And here's just the overlying theme of what this story was about. She couldn't wait to work for Ryan Walters' administration.
Okay, so she's a complete right-wing nutcase. Go on.
Now she's worried public schools won't survive the rest of his term.
Complete right-wing nutcase recognizes that what another complete right-wing nutcase is doing is going to ruin everything. It's going to, like, destroy the schools in the state. Okay, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. The surprising part is that she admitted that she's public about it. They must not have been giving her enough money to keep her mouth shut or something.
Term. She is resigned. We did a story with her, and
wow, she resigned.
The Walters people say this is false. This is not right.
Of course.
But anyway, back to Ryan Walters. Your caucus would like to see an impeachment process. You've had the supermajority. What are nobody wants to go through this. But what are the chances of that actually happening?
Of an impeachment. I didn't know that they could impeach him.
We're asking for an investigation to put forth all of the facts. And if the facts show that there is a warrant for impeachment, then I think that that's what the people of Oklahoma should have up for consideration. I understand that he was elected, but when you...
I don't believe he was. I could be wrong on this. Again, I will put a correction in later. Apparently, I was wrong. The guy is elected. He was elected.
When you and your own staff is saying that we don't believe that rural schools may survive under this current administration, that's when the alarm should start going off. We've seen unconstitutional bill after unconstitutional bill. The nation's very first religious charter school is an online charter school that they're trying to push out across the state of Oklahoma. You're telling me that the wealthiest religious institution in the history of the world can't afford to fund their own online virtual
We're talking about the Catholic Church.
St. Isidora. Yeah. And to the grant writer's point,
let me just explain a little bit. There's another thing that Ryan Walters did. He basically ordered in his position the state to fund a religious school. So taxpayer money is paying for religious education. That is explicitly banned, not allowed to do that. But he did it anyway. And in my opinion, he's doing it to kind of throw spaghetti at a wall, if you will. Throw and see what sticks. You know, tell them they have to read the Bible in class. Tell them they have to fund tell them they have to fund religious institutions. Tell them that kids are allowed to go to churches during the day instead of school and receive school credit for it. Throw whatever you can at the wall and see what sticks. Maybe none of it sticks. If not, okay, well, I'll move on with my life. That's kind of Ryan Walters' thinking. It's a zero-risk game for him. He can do whatever he wants, and he knows that it's the chance of him being removed from office is nearly zero, if not zero, straight up zero. And if one of these things gets through, it opens the floodgates for everything else. It opens the door for religious institutions to receive taxpayer funds. It opens the door for teachers to teach, for administration to order teachers to teach from the Bible. It opens the doors for kids to go to church every day, all day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, instead of school, and receive education or receive credit for that. He just wants one thing to stick. So yeah, he everything he's doing is unconstitutional. He knows that. He's trying to change the Constitution.
Yeah. And to the grant writer's point that if you have rural schools that are starved out and have to close down, who's going to fulfill that gap? Who's going to fill that gap? They want religious charter schools, virtual charter schools, to go in and to be able to do that. Unfortunately, we're just seeing the continuing dissolvement of the separation of church and state. Some theocratic lawmakers believe that they're divinely appointed to legislate their religious morality upon everyone, and that's just not America. That's not democracy. You can't just take away people's freedoms like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not possibly agree more. This dude is so on point, it's ridiculous. This is like I think a 30-minute segment or something. I listened to the whole thing, broke it down into various clips because he is so on point, and he says some stuff I had no idea about. They started debating, these two guys here, the Republican and the Democrat, about chaplains in schools. And the Republican argued that there are chaplains in the military, so you should be allowed to have chaplains in schools. The only real problem with that argument is they're not trying to put chaplains in schools. They're trying to put pastors in positions of school counselor, like a position that's normally filled by somebody with a psychology degree. They're trying to replace the job of someone with a psychology degree with a pastor. That's what's happening. That's not the same as chaplains in the military. The reason chaplains are allowed in the military and are even paid by the federal government is because they are interfaith. They cover Catholic and non-denominational and and Pentecostal and everybody, every single faith. And they have to be certified and a whole bunch of other things. And the reason that they're even allowed in the first place is because people are moving from place to place and cannot receive last rites, for example. They can't attend church service. They can't whatever. Because they set up camp on front lines where armies are like coming at them at any moment. Some of them are dying on the field, lots of them probably. And you can't just set up a church there. So they have a traveling chaplain. I'm actually okay with that. And in fact, I'm okay with the military paying for a traveling chaplain as long as they are interfaith and they cover imams. You know, they cover Muslim priests and Buddhist priests and everybody. As long as it's covered for everyone, I'm good. The difference between like military and school is school children are in a more permanent place. They can go to a church in their community if they want after school. They aren't moving through war zones where churches cannot be constructed at that moment. If they want to go to church, they can go to church. School is not church.
Yeah, real quick to the chairman's point about religious hospitals receiving public tax dollars. There's very strict laws in that they cannot proselytize to patients and they have to accept everyone. That's not the same with the St. Isidore School. Bottom line when it comes...
St. Isidore School, that Catholic school receiving taxpayer money, can discriminate based on religion. That's true. I forgot about that. So if they don't want to let gay people in, then I think that that's a legal exception because they're Catholic and they don't believe in being gay or whatever it is. I'm not sure if that's legal for them or not, but they are allowed to discriminate in all kinds of different ways. That's the point.
Bottom line when it comes to having school counselors is we need to fund them. We can't expect for volunteers to step up and fulfill core services of government and expect top 10 results. We need to actually invest in our state, and we're going to get the outcomes we desire.
Absolutely. If you want to move out of 49th place, stop doing like this. Their argument is we don't have the money to put, or we don't want to spend the money on school counselors. We want to put chaplains in instead who are free or way cheaper. Qualifications are lower and all the other stuff. If you want to get out of 49th place, you do that by not going cheap on stuff. Guess that just like flew right over their head.
Replacing trained mental health professionals with chaplains in schools is like asking a nurse tech to perform open heart surgery. Nothing wrong with a nurse tech, nothing against chaplains, but they are not trained to do this job. Now,
a 6-week training course even, which isn't required. I'm just giving an example here. Nothing's required. No education for most of these chaplain bills. But let's be super charitable and steelman it and say they have 6 weeks of training. That does not compare to the 4 to 6 years of childhood development and psychology training that a school counselor should have.
Senator Pugh and I have been in office for 8 years, and we know anytime you have a one-page bill come across your desk, there's going to be a stack of unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
This bill is so ambiguous, it's going to create so many problems. There's no definitions. Chaplains aren't even defined. There's no qualifications, no certifications, and no background checks required. This is going to be bad policy, just like...
There are 13 states in the U.S. right now that have pushed through chaplain bills, and I did a video about it with my wife on my main channel not too long ago, Chaplains in Schools. Just look that up on my channel. You should find it. I go through every single state and the things that they require, the things they don't, the ones that don't require any background check at all. Yes, there are some out there. They don't care. Even if you're like a sex offender, you can be a chaplain in certain states' schools, really. Anyway, check that video out if you're interested.
Bad policy, just like it was in Texas and the other 14 states that this bill mill has pushed across the United States with a agenda to proselytize to kids and unfortunately continue to break down that wall of separation in church and state.
But if it encompasses all faiths, what's the problem with it?
The problem is it's anti-constitutional. Right here, Article 2, Section 5 of the Oklahoma Constitution clearly states that no public dollars shall be used for religious purposes.
The legal problem is that it's unconstitutional, not just unconstitutional federally, but against the Oklahoma Constitution also. The moral problem is schools are not Sunday schools. They're intended to teach academics. How to read, how to write, how to do math, how to, do scientific experiments and stuff. They're not for religious education. You want to give your kid religious education, give it to them on your own time. You can get it for free from any church. Schools are for academics, not religion.
for religious purposes. And my thought to this author, Representative West, who we saw on television, is if you're so certain that this
We're going to watch what he said in a second. Representative West, what he was talking about there.
saw on television, is if you're so certain that this is what the people want, then send it to the vote of the people. Oh, wait, we already had that in 2016 when the people of Oklahoma voted down State Question 790, which proposed using taxpayer dollars to fund religious activities, purposes, and the 10 Commandments at the state capitol.
This dude is so on point. He is so prepared, so knowledgeable. He is awesome. Mickey Dollins is the dude's name. If you're in Oklahoma, you make sure that you vote this guy in. He's just fantastic. So Oklahoma voted on a ballot measure. Should we fund religious programs with taxpayer dollars? And they said, no, we should not, by 57%. That's a wide margin, dude. You can't get 57% of America to agree on anything practically. 57% of Oklahoma said no religion funding. That's just amazing.
State capitol. People of Oklahoma voted that down by 57%. We don't want public dollars going towards religion, and we need to keep that separate. However, the majority party continues to have a blatant disregard for the will of the people.
They don't give a shit, of course. I don't. There's a statistic that I can't think of right now, but it's something like 70% of the time, if something is backed up by like the wealthy, it goes through. But only like 10% of the time or something, if it's supported by the people, it goes through. This is not like a system in which normal everyday workers, middle class, working poor, whatever, even middle upper class, not a system in which those people get a government that works for them. There's a government that works for the top, 15%, and that includes Christian extremists because they have a disproportionate amount of power in the U.S. right now. So he was just talking about West, that guy West or whatever. This was the report. It's just a little short clip from this TV show that they played. Just listen to what it says here. Kind of breaks it down.
The bill would allow school districts to employ or accept one or more volunteer chaplains to counsel and support students as long as they get approval from their local school board. It also
employment or volunteer. So they're saying they're going to pay these people.
It also says schools can't choose any chaplains who've been convicted of or are a defendant for any crime that would require them to register as a sex offender.
Well, that's lucky, I suppose. Not so lucky in other states. Like I said, there are 13 total, and I forget, something like 8 to 10 or 13% of them don't have any requirements for background checks at all. I don't remember. Just watch my video on my main channel about it. I have a whole chart there that my wife created by going through the bills individually. Anyway.
The bill's author, State Representative Kevin West, says it would be an option for schools to expand or fill holes on support staffs.
Oh, I didn't know Kevin West wrote this bill. Interesting.
We've heard a lot of talk about, a lot of those support staff people, such as counselors, having shortages there. I felt like this would be a good way to open that door to possibly get some help.
He's confident the concept of chaplains in public schools is perfectly legal.
We have
It is not legal in any way. Even if it's like legal in Oklahoma, which it's not, but if it were, federally, it's not legal. And he knows that. He must have read the first sentence of the First Amendment of the Constitution at some point in his legal career, right?
Legal.
We have chaplains in the military. That's been challenged before. But we also have had chaplains in the schools.
Again, I don't have a problem with chaplains in the military. I don't have a problem with chaplains in the military, in jails, or in hospitals, because people's rights are restricted in those situations. When rights are restricted, I'm okay with that. Kids' rights are not being restricted. They're perfectly free to go to church at the end of the day or whatever.
In the schools in the past. So, I don't think that it runs afoul of any of that.
Hey, we did it before. Might as well do it again, right?
The chaplains would be ones that are certified from their faith group. They can be a minister, a rabbi, a priest, an imam, lay leader, or similar functioning within that faith group.
Yeah, so it's interesting he says that because Ryan Walters explicitly said the opposite. This is Ryan Walters talking about this bill, I believe it's this bill, and explaining, the hang-ups the things that he is not going to allow, even though this guy who wrote the bill explicitly outlined that it's okay for leaders of other faiths to be a part of it.
We just put in place a new bill, HB 1425. Here's what this bill does. It allows students during the day in high school to go to a church, receive religious or moral study, and get credit for it. We want to encourage our kids to freely express their religious beliefs, and so we're very excited about this piece of legislation. Well, we've now had the Satanists come in and say they're going to offer courses too and get credit for it. So I'm just going to clear this up. No, the Satanists are not coming into our schools. No, Satanism is not a religion.
Yes, it is. It is a legally recognized religion in the United States. Not just like as, an organization like a nonprofit registered church, but also it's been deemed a religion by courts.
They will not be recognized by our State Department of Education. You are not a religion, Satanist. I know that you guys like lying, and that's a central part of your belief system.
No, it isn't actually.
But you will not be participating with our schools. You will not be allowed in our schools, nor will you receive credit.
So that's interesting. That's an interesting thing to hear from him, right? Immediately after listening to the guy who wrote the bill say, I'm doing it for everybody. Anyone can take part in this program. I'm not limiting it to Christians.
That are certified from their faith group. They can be a minister, a rabbi, a priest, an imam, lay leader, or similar functioning within that faith group.
That's interesting, huh? Sounds like we're getting contradictions. You know why? Because these people, when I say these people, I mean the bill framer, the guy on screen here, Ryan Walters, the guy that enforces all of these things, they don't actually want other religions in schools or involved in any way, shape, or form. This is for Christians only. And if Ryan Walters didn't make that clear enough for you, listen to these right-wing activists testifying.
But the left side will make innuendos. Well, now we're going to have Satan as his chaplains. First, satanic is not a church, is not a religion, it's anti-God. So you just say, okay, and move on to the next one. Because
that's how they're going to discriminate. They're just going to say, no, we're not bringing you in.
Because I don't know any of you that would hire a Satanist, so you just look at their background and don't hire them. I mean, I don't know people in their engineering firm or teachers or baseball coaches that have an outright Satanist and say, oh, yeah, well, we'll hire you. So
problem solved. They're only going to hire Christians. Yeah, it may be technically legal for a Buddhist priest to be in the schools. Good luck getting one in. Not for nothing, but segregation ended in 1965, I think, right? Or 64, officially on paper. The Civil Rights Act ended it. Military had to walk a little girl into an integrated school. This is a famous picture of it. But people continued suffering in the form of social pressure, if you will. Yeah, the state was not enforcing or not allowing, companies to enforce segregation rules, but the KKK stepped in where the state stepped out and said, we'll just burn some crosses on a few lawns. We'll just hang some people from trees and see if they continue the segregation and see if they continue this integration thing. That seems like what's happening here. We're trying to push the door open and we will socially decide who we want involved. We're going to segregate this whole thing into Christians only. And everyone else, any other faith, background, whatever, will be pushed out. These people are absolutely soulless. Absolutely soulless. Tell me what you think about this in the comments.